I like it. I know child.
Okay, here they are. And when I hit this, they'll be able to see us. So come on and get in here close so we can be seen in the webcam. See how small the webcam is? No, get cheek. Nick, come here.
But don't crowd me.
We can see you guys.
Okay, great.
You got us?
Hi, my name is Billy.
Oh, we can hear you fine as well.
Oh, great.
Good.
Billy McMahon.
Nick Campbell.
I'm Benjamin.
Allison, we're going to ask you a few questions that some of our candidates find a little bit odd.
Let's go.
No
weird.
judgment. Shoot.
You're shrunken down to the size of nickels and dropped at the bottom of a blender. What do?
You take her flat on your back like
You
this.
just lay back,
Lay
enjoy
stiff
that
as a board,
breeze.
light as a feather,
Pretend it's a fan.
And let those
Okay,
bad
once this
blades whip
blender-
all around you like this. It's like getting an MRI.
Once this blender's on, it's on forever.
It's on.
Respectfully, I got to disagree. We sold blenders, and even the best model in the world is only going to run maybe 10 or 11 hours. So we're getting out, and when we do, we're better off for it because whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It's not so much getting out of the blender, it's what happens next. That's the question.
You've got 2 nickel-sized men free in the world. Think of the possibilities.
I mean, I pop in my head and I'm just
My
going
head's
here.
swimming.
Sunglass repair? We'd be hell on those
you
little
do the
screws.
Maybe stick us in those submarines that they put in people's bodies to fight diseases.
Okay, that's not a real thing, the submarines.
No.
Wait a minute. I thought we were stuck in a blender. Now we're saving lives? What?
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 Let me just recap this for you real quick. We started off in a blender.
Yeah.
Now we're saving lives. What?
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 Wait a minute. We were stuck in a blender.
What a journey.
And now we're saving lives?
You
What?
guys led us to this. Thank you.
All right, so now that you've watched this clip, which I love this movie, you might be asking, well, why is this different than the tree question? It's some off-the-wall weird question. Well, it's different, one, because it may show reasoning ability. It may show knowledge about the correct principles of why they should do that sort of thing, so it shows a knowledge of physics. It may also show creativity. Is it a good example? I don't know. It might be a good test. This is an example of the sort of thing that Google asks on their tests. We'd have to really look at Google's data for how the answers on that question correlate with future performance in order to know if it's actually valid. And that's why it's important to keep track of which questions actually lead to performance. So here's an example of which is reliability and which is validity. For example, reliability means there's nice grouping. So on this first target, we see that all 3 hit in almost exactly the same thing. So we could say this person reliably does not hit the bullseye. But they're very reliable. So this would be an example of a reliable test. This middle one shows neither reliability nor validity because it's not on target. Whereas the third one shows a nice grouping, and it also shows that this person is on target. So we would say this person, if this was an example of a test, is both reliable and valid. And that's what we're looking for in our selection measures. I love this demotivational poster. It says consistency. It's only a virtue if you're not a screw up. See, that person nailed the exact same spot, but both of them missed the bullseye, so it's kind of pointless. So generalizability. Does the validity of our measure generalize to other jobs, organization, kinds of people, time periods? So if I have some general test that I give people within my organization, does it generally predict performance or decreased absenteeism, that sort of thing, within all people, or should I only be targeting it towards a specific group? Like, for example, a test of who's going to be a good rodeo clown is not going to apply to who is going to be a good forklift operator, for example. You would give them very different tests if you were trying to look at, will this correlate with performance later on? For example, here's a couple of tests that you may be familiar with, the GRE and the GMAT. If you want to go to grad programs in general, you're going to take the GRE. And if you want business programs, you can take either GMAT or now you can also take the GRE. And they found that these generally predict performance among jobs that business people do. And there's a lot of different jobs that business people do, but these 2 exams do give you, they are generalizable to performance in a broad range of knowledge jobs, like things that you would go to grad school for. Now, utility. How useful is the measure? 1, of increasing overall profitability. That's our overall one that we're focused on. And this depends on the economic consequences of failure versus success. So this kind of lets us accurately select who will succeed in a batting average sense. And I'm going to tell you what that means in a second. And this depends on both our selection ratio and validity. So first, let's talk about what's a good percentage for batting average. So around 300 would be a good batting average. Anywhere close to that or above it, you're going to be looking good. You're going to have a job in Major League Baseball for a long time. Pass completion percentage in the NFL. If you're anywhere above like 55% and even a little bit lower than that, you're going to be doing great. You're going to be in the tops ever of all time if you're around 65%. Shooting percentage in the NBA. If you're anywhere close to 45% or higher, that looks good. Well, what about hits and misses in selection? What kind of ratio are we looking here? It depends. There is no answer that I can give you. It depends on the job. It depends on how expensive it is to make a bad decision. If it's a job where when turnover is super expensive, like in C-suite executives, when those people turn over, it's hugely expensive to find a new one. The cost of that, it's worth all the money you're going to pour into it to make sure you don't make a bad selection. If you're hiring people who work at a call center, well, utility has to be very low. Can they read and write, and are they going to stay here longer than a week? That's pretty much all you need to know. A place like that, because you can easily plug somebody else in and the cost is not high. So here's an example. So we're going to get mathy here. we can get a little quantitative. So like, let's say 100 people applied for the job, and we selected 40. So our selection ratio would be 40 out of 100. Everybody on the right side of that dotted line. See, 30 plus 10, 40 over the whole percentage, 40%. Accuracy without the test in terms of people who had successful performance. So if we had never given the exam, we would have seen that 50% had high performance. However, when we give the exam and we only accept people to the right of the dotted line, we see that 30 over 10, so 30 out of 40 of those people, 75% of people that we hired had high performance. So our utility is a 25% increase in accuracy. So we had 75% when we used this measure of this test score, 75% of people were good performers. Whereas if we don't use the exam, then only 50% would have been good performance. That's good. 25% increase in accuracy is a good thing. Another example, and again, mostly I'm just putting up these multiple examples so you can kind of see how the math works. If you're not able to add the numbers together to come out with those numbers on the first one, you'll be able to do it here. So again, we accepted 12 out of 100, selection ratio 12 out of 100. That's everything that dotted line. It's that 10% plus the 2%. Without the test, people who have good performance is that 30% plus the 10%, so that's 40 out of 100, 40%. But with the test, 10 out of the 12 people had good performance, so 83%. So here we see a 43% increase in accuracy, 83% minus 40%. So here we would say giving people that exam or that test and only picking people who perform well on that test makes absolute sense. You would want to give that test to everybody for that position from now until forever because it is increasing your utility by that much. Here's another one. 100 people applied for the job. We accepted 12. Accuracy without the test is 46%. Again, that's everybody above the dotted line. 40 plus 6%. Boom, 46%. Accuracy without the test, accuracy with the test, sorry, is 6 out of 12. It's at 6% over the 6 plus 6. Boom, 50%. So our utility here is only a 4% increase in accuracy. That 50% minus 46%. That's pretty small. So if this is something like, again, that call center job or a carpenter's assistant or something where the cost of actually administering these tests and going through this whole rigmarole in selection is more expensive than actually, oh, great, well, we picked one person who was better using this method versus not using the test, you don't want to use that. However, when you're selecting people who get paid more, $100,000, $200,000, VPs, directors, that sort of thing, a 4% increase in accuracy might be worth it. And so it all depends on cost versus benefit. Cost benefit analysis. All right, legality. So this means, does the measure discriminate against any group? So we're going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this today, but just so it's on your radar. Does it break the Civil Rights Act? Does it break the Age Discrimination in Employment? And does it violate the Americans with Disabilities Act? And we'll talk about that more in a later one. So to recap, before using measures to aid in selection, we need to make sure they are reliable, valid, generalizable, useful, and legal. Again, there's our vulgar. We want measures that are not vulgar. We want ones that are good. And next time, we'll talk more about selection in part 2.